Welcome to the Blade Lab. Today I'm going to be doing a review and overview of the Machinewise Sonora. You may have seen something about this. It was released, I believe, earlier this year. They've had some presence at Blade shows. It's been reviewed by a few other people. So I'm going to probably go over some of the same stuff that other people have gone over, but hopefully add something new to the mix as well. To the point of not being too repetitive, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about this presentation case. It's 3D printed. This is how it comes when you open it. So we have obviously the knife. It comes with a 15-bit Torx, which is necessary for the pivot. It comes with this lube and this challenge coin, which is supposedly or apparently the material that this little insert was cut out of, which is pretty cool. I wonder if you can see that. So that's a pretty cool touch. The COA is on the top of the box, so you can read that for yourselves. One interesting note, hopefully for y'all, is that this is, I believe, a new milling pattern for them. All the ones that I had previously seen had this sort of straight line milling in a different angle, but on the sort of bigger surface of the scales. This I believe new milling pattern has obviously a diamond, very fine diamond pattern there. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. If you want to pause and read this for a minute, you can do that too. And the back side. Okay, so yeah, so we've already gotten a little ahead of ourselves. So this is, as I said, made by Machinewise. This is obviously an American, not obviously, but it is an American company. They are located in Phoenix, Arizona. They've been making knives since 2021, according to their website. They started by making balisong knives, or butterfly knives, as some people call them. And this is their first non-balisong production. And I think it's pretty gorgeous. It definitely shows their machining skills, perhaps hence the name Machinewise. Everything is made in America. It's all 100% USA made, which is fantastic. They say that they have 5 people in their shop, so it's going to be a relatively small production. This is, I think we can see it here, yeah, number 592. So, you know, given their small shop and the relatively brief period they've been making these things, they've been pretty productive, right? We're already up to, this was, I believe, the last, from their last drop. So they're already up to approximately 600 knives, which is pretty good. This is not, as many of my recent reviews have been, this is going to be one that is not a budget knife by any means. You can check their site. I will put a link to it below for pricing. It varies a bit. This is pretty much their plain Jane model in terms of price and options. They also have versions that have some very nice anodizing. They have different blade steels. This one, open it up, Adam. This one is in MagnaCut. And they've been making some batches in S35 VN, I believe, because according to some other reviewer, they've been having difficulty getting MagnaCut. So that is what it is. So let's have a basic description. We'll start from the outside. So this is an all-titanium integral frame, which accounts, of course, for much of the price. It's more difficult to make a knife body out of one solid chunk of titanium than it is to make a couple slabs and screw them together with back spacers or barrel spacers. So that is super cool. They've obviously cut out some ovals in the back of the knife to reduce the weight. It has a milled titanium clip, which we will talk about. The only hardware on the outside of this knife that can be used to access it is this pivot screw, which is T15, as you might guess from the included bit. This little inlay part, they do this in different materials. This one is in brass, which I like a lot. I like the fact that it has the different milling pattern on it to give it a little, break up the sort of monotony of the diamonds on the main body. Love these little sort of spacer lines in between here. The button is very flush, as you can see when the knife is closed. It is a flipper only knife. There is no jimping on the flipper. We're going to talk about the action in a little bit. Just going over the outside now. The clip is reversible. See, it attaches. Oh, I lied. There is one other bit of hardware here, which is this screw for the clip. So obviously that can be taken out and flipped around to the other side. So let's open her up. And you see the blade is, it's a drop point, although it doesn't drop a whole lot. So it's the tip is not super low. They call this blade finish a light wash, which is some kind of stone wash. I believe you can tell from the plunge that this is a milled bevel and not hand ground, because I don't believe it's possible to make that sort of plunge grind on a actual grinder. The factory edge was actually indicated somewhere, I think, on their card. They say it's 20 degrees per side, and I measured it, and that was very accurate. The grind is interesting in the sense that it was very thin behind the edge out of the box. I've per my usual already resharpened this, and this time I did it to 18 degrees, whereas I normally prefer 15 or 16 degrees per side. And the reason for that is this kind of weird grind that they have on here, where it starts out sort of uber thin behind the edge on the most of the sort of flat area, but there's very little sort of distal taper to the blade, so it gets quite thick, almost 50 thousandths of an inch up here at the very tip. And that presents a challenge if you want to change the angle, as I always do, because, say if I had gone down to 15 degrees, well, it's going to be, that bevel, which is already pretty wide, is going to become pretty enormous up here at 50,000 degrees, 50 thousandths of an inch behind the edge. And that's why I only took it down to 18 degrees per side. But it's, that is a bit annoying to me. I would prefer it if they had kind of more of a standard grind where you can maintain roughly the same bevel width through the whole width of the edge, so that you can sort of choose your own angle. And if you want a lower angle, you don't have to worry about it becoming a sort of a cleaver up here at the top. And that is one of the nitpicks I have on this knife. But let's talk about the good things, which are, I think, outweigh the negatives. And chief among them is just going to be this absolutely gorgeous machining that they have on this knife. To me, it's just, it's really a thing of beauty. As bees would say, would you look at it? Just look at it. But it's, isn't that incredible? It's like just the precision. There's no, it's just flawless, really, as far as I can tell. Let me get as close as I can here, and you can just see all the amazing detail that they've got in here. Whoops, there we go. I do sort of wish that they had gone with the straight milling on this side, on this section. I don't really know what to call it. Just to match this side, and because I think it gives a nice contrast with the body of the diamond pattern. But I do love the straight milling on the clip. You know, they could have gone to match this, but I kind of like this. Instead, it matches these sort of chamfers on the side. I really like the blade finish too. I think that's quite cool. There are really no sharp edges on this knife. They've done just an excellent job of finishing it to make it just feels like a little gem. You know, it feels like a little piece of jewelry, and that's almost how I would describe this knife. You know, sort of pocket jewelry. Let's talk a bit about the dimensions, since it's hard to judge that just from looking at it in isolation. So I'm going to break out my ruler here. Let's look at the overall length of this knife. Is just about it's about 7 3/4 inches. The blade length is about 3.3 inches, I would say. Cutting edge is about just under 3.25, a little less than 3.5 inches. Is my head in the way here? Sorry about that. You probably see me in the ruler. Yeah, just under 3.5 inches. Handle length is 4.5 inches closed. So let's do our usual size comparisons while we're talking about lengths. So this is going to be your paramilitary 2. You can see that PM2 is definitely longer. Handle is longer. Actual cutting edge is shorter. Often the case with the PM2. Let's compare it to the Benchmade bug out. Titanium scales on this one. Bug out is obviously smaller. Cutting edge length is also shorter on the bug out. So let's get rid of these two. Let's compare it to some, I think, comparable American-made sort of mid-tech knives. This is going to be your tactile Archer, beg your pardon. So the Archer is a little bit longer, a little bigger. Let's compare it to a Oz Roosevelt original version, not the XL. Obviously a much smaller knife. Talk about width in a moment. Let's compare it to the SPK Lamia, which is shorter than the Sonora, and we'll compare it to the Brown Knives FSD Mini, which is about the same size in terms of length and blade as the Sonora. So there is that. But let's also talk about the thinness of this knife, because it is quite thin. I have my calipers here. I think it's safe to say that the average sort of EDC pocket knife is about 1/2 inch thick, not including the pocket clip. This one, I think you can see that, is just maybe a hair over, or maybe a hair under, or anyway, just about 4/10 of an inch thick. So even though it's only a difference of a 1/10 of an inch, it's significant actually in use. Let's compare that to just the PM2, for example. see, the PM2 is going to be about, it's also a pretty thin knife, but it's about 0.455 maybe. And we already had we had this Rosie out earlier, and interestingly, the Rosie is almost exactly the same width as the Sonora. So, don't know if that was by design or just worked out that way, but yeah, so two very similar knives in terms of carry width, which is cool. The weight of the Sonora is 3.3 ounces, which is very good blade to weight ratio. I have done some cutting with this knife, and it out of the box I expected it to be a super cutter, because even though it's not super thin, I believe the blade stock is I think it was 0.125. Let me see. Yeah, it's 0.125 inches, which is pretty average, but it's a nice tall grind, and it was super thin behind the edge. It came relatively sharp. I got a score of 170 best on it, which is better than your average factory edge. But I wasn't that impressed by it when I've cut up a few boxes with a factory edge. Since then, as I said, I put my own edge on it, and it was much better. So it's actually, I think, a very good slicer now. I'm not sure what the deal was with the original edge. Maybe there was some kind of burr on it or something. But with my own edge, it's an excellent cutter at this point. I mentioned that the steel is MagnaCut, which is a great choice for a pocket knife. I think you all are familiar with it now. It's a great corrosion resistance, has good edge retention, especially at 63 64 HRC, and it has a very good toughness at those high hardnesses, so that's also very nice. This one, as you saw at the very beginning, was listed at 63.5 HRC. I have taken this apart, and I'm going to insert a video section about the disassembly, because I don't think anyone, or at least I didn't see anyone on YouTube who had undertaken that perilous task, but I did, and it was an adventure. But so when I took it apart, I discovered that there are in fact 3 indents on the tang of the blade, indicating that they are testing each and every blade. Just looking at their stock when they had their drop, it's obvious that they're rounding their HRC numbers to the nearest half HRC, which makes sense because indentation testers have a accuracy of plus or minus, I believe, 0.5% or 0.5 points HRC. I did use my Lieb tester to test their test and see where we came out. I got a very consistent score, and maybe I'll put the video up of that too, of 63.2 HRC. So close enough to, I would call it a confirmation of their 63.5, because there is a little bit of variation with both testing machines. So yeah, I was very pleased to see that I got equivalent, almost exactly the equivalent of what they got. And it's an excellent harness, so that's great. Let's talk a bit about the action, because that's what a lot of people, I'm going to zoom out a little bit for this too. A lot of the other reviewers who have talked about this knife have sort of gone on about how awesome the action is. And one unique feature of the Sonora is that it's not on bearings, and it's also not on phosphor-bronze washers. So what the heck is it? Well, what they're doing is using a bushing system. So there is actually, you'll see this in the disassembly video, but there is a bushing that they say is extremely accurately ground inside the hole in the tang of the blade, and so there's oil on the bushing. I believe they say it's accurate to the length of the bushing. It's my dog. Is accurate to 0.00008 inches, so very fine. But the idea behind it is that the knife doesn't actually ride on the bearings, but the bushing is ever so slightly wider than the blade. So when you tighten down the pivot, it's going to press the scales against the bushing, and then the knife rides on the cushion of oil between the bushing and the actual tang of the blade. So that's a lot of words. And what does it feel like? It really feels sort of glassy smooth, which is cool. Pretty unique sort of feeling. And since I did that, I do have a little button stick, and there's no play. Let me go into this. So if I open the knife lightly and then close it, there's no stick. And I think that's because the button is not engaging as deeply as if I, well, that time it did. But if I really sort of whack it and then open it, see if you can hear this. There's a little bit of stick. It's not terrible, but it's definitely there. But if I just do a very sort of light opening, there's no stick. However, if I also do the light opening to avoid the stick, then there is a little bit of blade play. So I don't know if this was a result of my improper tensioning or what, but it's a thing now. They do tell you that you're supposed to torque this pivot to 3 nanometers, pounds, whatever the force is. And I actually do have a little torque wrench for my bicycle, because I'm a bike rider, and I did attempt to torque it to the factory spec, and I found when I did that it was actually over tightened. It's like very tight. So I loosened it a little bit, and now I have this situation. Debating on whether to send it back to them to see if I can get them to get it back to the point where there is no stick and no blade play, but I probably won't, because it's not really a problem for me. I have a lot of button knives that have a little bit of stick, and it's kind of used to it, and as long as it's not where you have to sort of pop it, put a lot of force into it, it doesn't bother me that much. Also found that if I want to avoid stick altogether, I can just sort of rest my thumb on the button when I open it, and that prevents it, I guess, just from popping out just that last little fraction of a millimeter that causes it to wedge a little bit. So that is what it is. Be interested to hear if anyone has one and has the same experience or a different experience. I guess I would have to classify that as a bit of a negative, because you would hope that it would perform with no sticking and with solid lockup all the time. But again, that could be user error. Let's talk about the pocket clip now. Oh, wait a minute, a little bit more on the action. So yeah, it is. I might have to adjust the camera on this. But if you press the button fully, I may need to adjust it, because from the top view camera you can't really appreciate this. But it is absolutely zero resistance when you hold the button down. It's just swinging. And you know, there are other button knives that that do the same thing, but those are generally bearing knives. And with the bearing knives, there's always some feeling of the, you know, no matter, even if it's, you know, the best, you know, skiff bearings, there's always some notion that it's running on bearings. You know, there are balls, however smooth, rolling across metal. Whereas with this, since it is literally just riding on a layer of oil, there is absolutely zero resistance, which is unique in my experience and very cool. So love that. It's quite satisfying to open it. You can see that the retention isn't always great, so you might have to just slap it back down in there. Let me zoom out again. Missed that one, my fault. So I've probably flicked this, so I don't know, 1,000 times in the week or so that I've had this. Really enjoying carrying it a lot. Okay, now on to the clip. So I don't love the clip. I saw another reviewer sort of raving about how great it was in terms of carry. I don't find it to be all that. It's a little stiff for me. I tend to wear shorts that have pretty thick seams, and it's a little hard to get in and out of pocket. Not terrible. It's not shredding, even though it is on this diamond pattern. The pattern is small enough and kind of, it gives you a little traction, but it's not really abrasive at all. It's a little bit smooth. So I don't find it to be a pocket shredder. It's just a lot of tension. And I think that's because this is such a short spring area here. And there's also a pretty wide contact patch here. So yeah, I've tried to, I mean, it's really hard to bend out. And I have tried my usual tricks to try to eliminate some of that tension, and so far no go, but it's okay. You know, it's just a little bit of click. Let me I'm not going to show it, but you can hear what it sounds like. So I've just put it in my pocket, you pull it out and you get that kind of snap. So that is what it is. Could be better, could be worse. Overall, I think probably the best description I can give you is, you know, it's like a fine watch or a fine piece of jewelry. I think it's just the joy in the knife is just in the sort of gorgeous machining and the details and the sort of unique glassiness of the action. I think even though it is expensive, you know, relative to some knives, it is definitely not expensive relative to other American-made sort of mid-tech knives, such as these. And I think it's, for what it is, I think it's actually a good value. Let me give you the prettier side to me. So it is, again, going to go on my non-existent, highly recommended list. If you can get your hands on one, I think you will really enjoy it. Speaking of that, they are obtainable, but not entirely on demand. You'll probably want to subscribe to their Instagram channel. I don't know, I can't remember if they have a email list. I think they do on their website. So you want notifications, and then they periodically do drops of these. The drop that I purchased this one from, they were available for, I'm going to say, maybe a day, half a day to a day from the time that they dropped. And I think there were something like, you know, maybe 16 or 18 of them in, you know, many different sort of color configurations, the different milling patterns, different, you know, insert materials, different anodization. So you will have your choice, and I'm believe my recording just cut out. But so if you want one, you will be able to get one. It just may take you a couple weeks or a month or so. But hang in there. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, please hit the little like button down below. And if you enjoy this kind of content, I also do sharpening and sharpening gear stuff. Please subscribe, and there will be more of it. And I'll try to be more regular, I always say. But this time I mean it. So y'all have a good one, and take care.